The Valar Dominion had ruled their side of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were a proud, elegant race with minds that could bend light and matter. To them, humanity was a young and unpredictable species, bold, emotional, and always reaching for the impossible. For decades, the two civilizations had watched each other carefully from across the stars. Humans expanded fast, building colonies wherever they could breathe air and grow food. The Valar observed in silence, unsure whether these newcomers were a danger or an opportunity. Then came the Sharn invasion, a dark threat from beyond both empires. The Sharn destroyed everything in their path, no negotiation, no mercy. Humanity and the Valar had no choice but to fight together. It was the only way to survive. When the war ended, both sides were exhausted but victorious. The Sharn were gone and peace returned. But peace between humans and Valar was uneasy. Old suspicion lingered like dust after a storm. That was when the Treaty of Sol Valar was proposed, a formal alliance that would bind the two civilizations in trade, defense, and diplomacy. The most powerful symbol of that treaty would be a union ceremony, a joining between a human representative and a Valar. Noble and the chosen pair were Princess Lyra Valar and Captain Aaron Holt. Princess Lyra stood on the balcony of the Crystal Citadel, looking down at the shining city of her people. Everything shimmered. Glass towers, silver bridges, floating gardens, all glowing under the violet light of the Valar sun. She should have felt pride. But all she felt was a deep, quiet fear. Her reflection in the window showed a graceful woman with pale blue skin, silver eyes, and long white hair that flowed like light itself. Yet behind her beauty was uncertainty. A human. They wanted her to be joined with a human. Lyra had read about them, watched them during the war, even spoken to some human diplomats. But in her heart, she never trusted them. Humans were too direct, too emotional, too hungry for progress. They rushed into everything, wars, inventions, and even relationships without thinking of the cost. Her father, High Chancellor Valan, entered the balcony quietly. His robes shimmered like liquid crystal and his eyes were tired. "You do not seem ready, my daughter," he said gently. Lyra kept her gaze on the horizon. "Must I truly do this, father? Is there no other way to prove our loyalty?" "The humans will never trust us if we keep our distance," Valan said. "A union will show both races that we share more than politics." "It will show faith," Lyra frowned. "Faith in strangers?" "In allies," he corrected. "The humans fought with courage when others fled. You saw it yourself. We owe them respect." She turned away, her heart heavy. "Respect is not the same as trust," her father sighed. "Perhaps. But sometimes trust is born from duty. And sometimes love follows trust." Lyra didn't answer. Love seemed like a small and dangerous word for something this political. Captain Aaron Holt far away, aboard the human flagship Valiant Star. Captain Aaron Holt received his orders. He was a soldier, not a diplomat. His record was spotless, known for courage and loyalty during the Sharn War. He had saved hundreds of civilians when his transport ship was shot down on Kareth 9. He wasn't rich or famous, but people respected him for one reason. He never gave up on anyone. When his commander told him he was to represent humanity in the Valar Union ceremony, "Aaron thought it was a mistake. You want me to marry an alien princess?" he asked, trying to make sense of it. "Not marry," his commander corrected with a small grin. "It's a symbolic union. But yes, you'll live on Valara Prime for some time. The princess is an important figure, and we need someone who represents humanity's best side." Aaron rubbed his neck. "Why me?" "Because you're patient, Holt. You listen. The Valar don't trust emotion, but they respect sincerity. Just be yourself." He wasn't sure what that meant, but he agreed. He had seen the Valar fight during the war, graceful and disciplined, nothing like the chaos of human tactics. He respected them deeply. If this union could keep peace between their people, he would do his part. First meeting. The day of the meeting arrived. The Crystal Citadel was filled with light and color as the human delegation arrived. Drones floated through the air, capturing every moment. The Valar watched in silence, curious about the noisy, warm-blooded creatures that had once fought beside them. Aaron stepped out of the transport wearing the black and silver uniform of the Terran Defense Force. His short brown hair was neatly trimmed, and his posture straight, though his heart raced. He felt hundreds of eyes on him. Then he saw her. Princess Lyra standing at the top of the marble steps surrounded by glowing attendants. Her expression was calm and cold like a frozen lake. He walked up the steps, bowed slightly and said with a polite smile, "It's an honor to meet you, Princess." Lyra tilted her head. Her voice was soft, melodic, but distant. "Captain Holt, the honor is mutual. We welcome you to Valara Prime." Aaron noticed her formal tone and the way her silver eyes avoided direct contact. He could tell she was uncomfortable, but he didn't take it personally. "I've heard much about your people," he said kindly. "Your world is beautiful." Lyra gave a faint nod. "I hope it is not too different from your home." Aaron chuckled lightly. "Different, yes, but I think that's what makes this alliance worth it." Something flickered in her gaze. Curiosity, perhaps. But it vanished as quickly as it came. Cultural differences. In the following days, Aaron tried to learn Valar customs. He studied their language, their way of greeting, even their subtle gestures of respect. He was fascinated by how everything on Valara Prime seemed alive. The architecture, the light, even the air felt intelligent. But he also noticed how formal everything was. The Valar rarely smiled. Every conversation felt like a dance between pride and politeness. Aaron didn't fit in easily. He was open, talkative, and laughed often. To the Valar, laughter was strange, too loud, too unguarded. Yet whenever he laughed, the servants nearby couldn't help but feel a strange warmth, something they couldn't explain. Lyra observed all this from a distance. She couldn't decide whether Aaron's openness was foolish or brave. He made friends easily, even with those who looked down on him. One evening, during a small reception, Lyra noticed him speaking to one of the young Valar scholars. The scholar made a rude remark about human intelligence. Aaron didn't get angry. Instead, he asked questions, calmly, curiously, until the scholar was forced to admit that humans had achieved in centuries what took the Valar millennia. Lyra found herself watching him more than she expected. The illness a few days later. Lyra fell ill after a ceremony. A rare pollen from the earth plants brought for decoration reacted badly with her biology. Her skin dimmed and her body temperature dropped. The healers placed her in a recovery chamber, warning that she needed rest and stable energy around her. Emotional chaos could worsen her condition. When Aaron heard the news, he went straight to the medical chamber. The guards tried to stop him. No humans were allowed inside the royal wing, but he refused to leave. "I'm not here to interfere," he said firmly. "I just want to make sure she's okay." The guards hesitated, sensing his sincerity, and let him stand at the door. Inside, Lyra's breathing was slow and weak. Aaron sat quietly beside the chamber, talking softly even though she might not hear him. He told her stories of Earth, of sunrise over the ocean, of music played in the rain, of people who cared for strangers simply because it was right. Hours passed. The healers noticed something unusual. Lyra's recovery rate increased slightly when Aaron was nearby. His calm presence seemed to stabilize her mental field. When she woke the next morning, the first thing she saw was him, sitting half asleep on a chair, still keeping watch. Her voice was weak. "You stayed?" Aaron smiled faintly. "Didn't want to risk you getting bored without someone to talk to." She blinked, surprised by his casual tone. Then for the first time, a small, genuine smile touched her lips. "Humans are strange," she murmured. He chuckled. "We get that a lot." New thoughts after that day. Something changed between them. Lyra began to see Aaron not as a representative, but as a person. He didn't act superior or guarded. He was simple in a way that felt refreshing. She began asking him questions about human art, emotions, and dreams. And each time, his answers carried a kind of honesty that her people rarely showed. When he spoke about humanity's flaws, he didn't hide them. When he spoke about their hopes, his eyes shone with belief. The days after Lyra's recovery passed quietly. The palace healers called it a miracle that she had survived the reaction so easily, but those who had seen Aaron sitting beside her chamber knew there was more to it. The Valar believed that emotions carried energy, and that energy could heal or destroy. Somehow, the human soldier's steady presence had balanced the chaos around her. No one could explain it. Lyra didn't speak of it either. But every time she saw Aaron in the palace halls, she felt something strange. A calm warmth that reached through her shielded heart. Morning at the Citadel, Aaron woke early each day, his human habits amusing the Valar servants. He would jog through the wide, glowing corridors, passing through gardens that floated on streams of light. Sometimes the Valar guards watched from a distance, whispering about his strange discipline. After exercise, he would stop by the training arena to observe Valar warriors practicing with psychic weapons, glowing staffs that moved as if alive. He was fascinated. One morning, as he watched, a young warrior lost focus and his weapon spun out of control, crashing into a pillar. The others gasped, expecting Aaron to mock or panic. Instead, he ran forward, helped the warrior up, and said with an easy grin, "Don't worry. Happens to the best of us. You just need more practice." The warrior looked shocked. No Valar noble would ever speak so kindly after such a failure. Aaron's behavior spread whispers again. The human captain was different. Unpredictable, yes, but never cruel. Lyra heard the stories from her attendants. She found herself smiling at them without realizing it. The garden conversation. That evening, Lyra went to the garden terrace. The air shimmered with soft light from the glowing plants. She often came here to think, far away from politics. But this time she wasn't alone. Aaron was there, sitting on a stone bench watching the twin moons rise. He stood quickly when he saw her. "Princess Lyra," he greeted. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude." She shook her head. "This is a public garden. You may stay." He smiled and sat again, leaving space beside him. She joined him, carefully, gracefully. For a few minutes, neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. The garden was full of faint music from the glowing trees, a sound like soft wind chimes. Finally, Lyra said, "You have become popular among my people." Aaron laughed softly. "That might be the first time someone said that about me." "They say you treat everyone as equals," she continued. "Even the servants." He turned to her, his eyes thoughtful. "Why wouldn't I? Where I come from, rank doesn't make you more human, or in your case, more Valar." She tilted her head. "Among us, hierarchy is natural. It keeps order." "I get that," he said gently. "But sometimes order keeps people apart when they don't need to be." Lyra looked at him curiously. "You speak like a philosopher, not a soldier," he chuckled. "Soldiers think a lot when they don't have time to talk." She looked at him then, really looked, at the lines around his eyes, the calm strength in his voice. He was not handsome by Valar standards, but there was something steady in him. "Something real. Your people are strange," she said softly. "But perhaps in a good way." Aaron smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." The Festival of Light a week later, the Festival of Light began, a Valar tradition celebrating the victory over darkness. For the first time, humans were invited to participate. Lyra led the ceremony as custom demanded, dressed in a gown of woven starlight. She floated down the crystal steps as the citizens watched, their bodies glowing faintly in rhythm with the music of the spheres. Aaron stood among the guests wearing formal human attire. He felt awkward among the elegant beings, but when Lyra's eyes found his in the crowd, she gave a small nod, almost invisible, and suddenly, he didn't feel out of place anymore. During the ceremony, each leader lit a flame that symbolized unity. The Valar flame was white and pure, while the human flame burned gold. When the two flames touched, a new color burst forth, shimmering blue and silver, rising high above the plaza. The crowd gasped. It had never happened before. "Is that supposed to happen?" Aaron whispered to the nearby aide. "No," the aide said softly. "It means the bond is real." Lyra turned toward him, her eyes wide with the same wonder. For a brief second, both smiled, silently acknowledging something neither fully understood. Lessons and questions. In the days after the festival, Lyra began inviting Aaron to her studies. She wanted to understand how humans thought, their philosophies, their emotions, their stories. Aaron told her about Earth, about cities that touched clouds, oceans that stretched beyond sight, and people who fought not for conquest, but for the dream of tomorrow. He described laughter around campfires, the smell of rain on metal rooftops, and the strange beauty of imperfection. Lyra listened closely. "You speak of chaos as if it is beautiful," she said one day. "It can be," he replied. "Chaos means freedom. It means change. Without it, nothing new ever happens." Her eyes softened. "We fear change. It brings uncertainty," he nodded. "Yeah, it scares us too, but we move anyway." That one sentence stayed with her long after he left the chamber. "We move anyway." The council's suspicion. Not everyone approved of Aaron's growing closeness with the princess. Within the Valar High Council, whispers began. Some elders claimed the human was manipulating her emotions. Others feared the humans would gain too much influence over their government. During one secret meeting, Councillor Triven spoke sharply. The human's presence has already altered the festival flame. What else might he change? But Lyra, unaware of these discussions, continued her quiet lessons and walks with Aaron. She began to laugh more, to question traditions, and to smile when people least expected it. To her attendants, it was shocking. To her father, it was confusing. To the council, it was dangerous. A walk through the city one afternoon, Lyra decided to walk through the lower levels of the city, something no royal had done in generations. She asked Aaron to come with her. The city's lower districts were full of trade, laughter, and the sound of glowing markets. The Valar citizens looked at her with awe. Some even bowed. She waved awkwardly, unused to such closeness. Aaron noticed her hesitation and whispered, "Try saying hello." Not as a princess, just as Lyra. She gave him a doubtful look. But when a young vendor handed her a small crystal fruit, she smiled and said softly, "Thank you." The vendor froze, shocked that a royal had spoken to him directly. Then he bowed so deeply he nearly fell over. Aaron chuckled. "See? You just made his week." Lyra's smile widened slightly. "You make everything sound simple." "It usually is," he said. "We just make it complicated." They walked for hours, exploring markets, tasting foods, and talking about little things, colors, smells, even jokes that didn't quite translate. By the end of the day, Lyra's view of humanity had shifted again. These beings were not primitive, not chaotic. They were alive in a way her people had forgotten how to be. An evening of truth. That night, Lyra invited Aaron to the observatory tower, a quiet place filled with star maps and floating light crystals. She wanted to thank him for the day, but also, she didn't know what else she wanted to say. As they stood under the transparent dome, stars stretched endlessly above them. "I used to think humans were reckless," she admitted softly. "You rush into the unknown with no fear of what lies ahead." Aaron smiled faintly. "Oh, we're afraid." "We just do it anyway," she turned to him. "Why? Why face danger, pain, or death?" "Just to keep moving forward." He looked up at the stars before answering. "Because we don't live forever. Every day we have might be our last. That makes it worth something, so we try, even when it hurts, even when it's hopeless." Lyra felt something stir in her chest, something deep and new. Her people lived for centuries, untouched by time, but maybe that was why they had grown cold. Humans burned bright because they had so little time to shine. "Your kind treasures moments," she whispered. "Yeah," he said softly. "Every moment matters." They stood there in silence, watching the galaxies drift like glowing rivers. The council's warning the next morning. Lyra was summoned before the High Council. They spoke with cold, formal tones. "Princess," said Councillor Triven, "you are drifting from your duty. The human's influence is changing you. This alliance must remain symbolic, not personal." Lyra's expression hardened. "You fear understanding, Councillor. That is why we fought for centuries without progress." The room went silent. No one dared speak to the council that way, especially not a princess. "Be careful, child," another elder said quietly. "He is not one of us." Lyra turned and left without another word. But inside she was trembling, with anger, with confusion, and with something else she couldn't name. The days following the council's warning were quiet, too quiet. Princess Lyra noticed the change immediately. The attendants spoke less, the guards avoided long conversations, and even her father, the High Chancellor, seemed distant. The peace between the Velar and humans still stood, but something in the air felt fragile. And in the middle of that silence, Aaron Holt continued to move through the palace as if nothing had changed. He greeted everyone he passed, trained with the Valar guards, and spent evenings studying their language until he could almost speak it fluently. To him, this mission was more than diplomacy. It was a promise to prove that understanding was possible between two very different species. Lyra watched him from afar more often than she admitted. The distance between, since the council meeting, Lyra had avoided seeing Aaron directly. Part of her was afraid of the feelings that stirred whenever he looked at her, that strange warmth that her people did not even have words for. One morning, Aaron came to the council garden where she usually meditated. He stopped a few steps away, giving her space. You've been avoiding me, he said gently, his tone half teasing, half sincere. Lyra opened her eyes slowly. You imagine too much, Captain, he smiled faintly. Maybe, but humans are good at reading people. Or at least trying to. She stood and faced him. The soft light of the morning made her skin glow like crystal. My people think I am letting emotion cloud my judgment, she said quietly. They believe you are dangerous because you make me uncertain. Aaron's expression softened. Uncertain isn't bad, Lyra. It means you're thinking with your heart as well as your mind. Among the Velar, she replied. The heart has no place in politics. Then maybe that's what needs to change, he said simply. She looked at him for a long time, her silver eyes unreadable. Then she whispered, You speak as if change is easy. He shook his head. It's not, but it's worth it. A moment of calm. Later that day they visited the Hall of Memories, a vast chamber where glowing spheres floated in the air, each holding a recorded moment from Velar history. Lyra explained how the spheres contained memories of great leaders, victories, and lessons from centuries past. Aaron reached out toward one of the orbs, but didn't touch it. It's beautiful, he said softly. You remember everything? Lyra nodded. We forget nothing. It is both our strength and our curse. He glanced at her. Humans forget a lot, but maybe that's what helps us forgive. Lyra was silent. That idea, that forgetting could be a mercy, was new to her. As they walked deeper into the hall, they stopped before a sphere that shimmered differently from the rest, darker, more fragile. It was the memory of the first war between humans and Velar. Lyra placed her hand near it, and the air filled with echoes of battle cries, sorrow and fire. This, she said quietly, is why my people fear yours. Aaron's voice was low. And yet you still gave peace a chance, she turned to him. Perhaps because peace was all that was left. Their eyes met, two people standing in the shadow of history, yet daring to dream of something new. An unexpected threat piece, however, rarely lasted long in the galaxy. A message arrived from the outer colonies. A human cargo fleet had been attacked near Velar space. No one knew who was responsible. Some claimed it was Velar rebels who hated the Alliance. Others whispered it was a human faction trying to break the treaty. The council panicked. Accusations flew like arrows. Lyra attended the emergency meeting sitting beside her father. Aaron was called in as the human representative. Counselor Triven spoke first, his voice sharp. A human fleet crosses our borders and now their ships are destroyed. Convenient, isn't it? Perhaps a trick to blame us and seize our resources. Aaron's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice calm. With respect, Counselor, humans don't destroy their own fleets. Someone wants to divide us, another elder said coldly. Or expose the truth, that this alliance was doomed from the start. The argument grew louder. Lyra stood, her voice cutting through the noise. Enough. We will not accuse without proof. All fell silent. She turned to Aaron. Captain Holt, do your people have any evidence of the attackers? Not yet, he admitted. But if you'll allow me, I can help investigate. I fought against pirates and Sharn raiders for years. I know their tactics, the council murmured among themselves. Triven glared. And what will we do when he discovers something that makes us look guilty? Lyra lifted her chin. Then we will face it with truth, not fear. Her father looked at her with quiet pride. Very well, he said. The captain will assist our security teams. Aaron bowed slightly to Lyra. Thank you, Princess. She gave a small nod. Find the truth, Captain, for both our worlds. The investigation Aaron worked tirelessly with the Velar Security Division. His human intuition and quick thinking surprised them. He analyzed ship fragments, signal logs, and energy traces, all while maintaining respect for Velar methods. Lyra occasionally visited the command center, watching as he moved among alien technicians as if he belonged there. One evening, she found him studying a holographic map of the attack zone. You haven't rested, she said softly. He smiled wearily. Sleep later. Truth first. She stepped closer, her gaze following the glowing map. You really believe someone is trying to break the Alliance? He nodded. I've seen it before. Fear always tries to destroy what it doesn't understand. Fear, she repeated quietly. Yes, my people know it well. They stood side by side, the map's light painting their faces blue. Neither spoke for a long time, but something unspoken passed between them. Trust. Fragile but real. Doubt and discovery, 2 days later. The investigation found a lead. An encrypted signal traced to a hidden transmitter within the Valar capital itself. When they decoded the message, the words were chilling. The Union must fail. The Valar must stand alone. The message came from inside the palace. Aaron brought the information to Lyra immediately. She read the data, her hands trembling. This cannot be true. It's someone close, Aaron said carefully. Someone who doesn't want peace. Before they could act, alarms blared across the citadel. The council chamber had been breached. The main communication tower exploded in a burst of light. Not a deadly blast, but enough to throw the palace into chaos. Guards rushed everywhere. Confusion spread like fire. And amid the noise, rumors began to twist the truth. Humans did this, shouted one voice. They planted spies. Within minutes, chaos turned to anger. Aaron was surrounded by Valar guards, their weapons glowing. Lyra pushed through the crowd, shouting, "Stop! Lower your weapons!" One guard hesitated. "Princess, the signal came from human technology." Aaron's face was calm but pale. "It wasn't me." "You know that." Lyra looked at him, and for a brief, terrible moment, doubt flickered in her heart. The evidence was against him. Her people's eyes were on her. If she defended him and was wrong, it could destroy everything. He saw the hesitation in her eyes and whispered, "If you believe I'd do this, then maybe I was wrong about us." Those words struck her like a blade of ice. Before she could answer, the guards took him into custody. The choice that night, the city was silent again, but this time the silence was full of fear. Lyra couldn't sleep. She walked the halls of the palace, her heart heavy. She remembered everything. His laughter in the gardens, his patience with her people, the way he stayed by her side when she was ill. None of it matched the image of a traitor. Finally, she made her decision. She went to the secure chamber where Aaron was held. The guards let her in reluctantly. He stood behind an energy barrier, hands bound by glowing cuffs. Still, he looked at her with calm eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "I should," she replied. "I came to ask one question." He nodded. "Go ahead. Did you do it?" He met her gaze without flinching. "No." She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they shone with quiet determination. "I believe you." For a long moment, they said nothing. But in that silence, something powerful grew between them. A bond beyond politics or species. Lyra turned to the guards. "Release him. I will take responsibility." The guards hesitated but obeyed. Aaron stepped forward, rubbing his wrists. "Thank you," he said softly. She shook her head. "Don't thank me. I'm not doing this for diplomacy. I'm doing it because I know you." He smiled faintly. "That's more than I could ask for." The peace between humans and the Valar Dominion was hanging by a single thread. After months of trust-building, shared missions, and friendship, one dark morning changed everything. It began with an explosion. The great crystal tower of Velcora, the place where both races were planning the final treaty, was shattered by a blast that shook the city's heart. The shining walls cracked. Alarms echoed through the capital, and chaos spread across the sky as small debris rained down like fire. When Lyra rushed out of her chambers, her heart was racing. The air smelled of smoke and ozone. Guards were shouting orders, carrying wounded diplomats. But worst of all, the people were whispering one word over and over: humans. "They did this," shouted one of the Valar officers. "They've betrayed us." Lyra froze. The world spun around her. Humans? Aaron? No, it couldn't be true. But already the council was calling for an emergency meeting. Inside the council chamber, fear and anger filled the air. High Chancellor Morthen slammed his staff against the floor. "The evidence is clear," he roared. "The blast signature matches human technology. Their warships were seen near our orbital routes just hours before the attack." A low murmur spread through the hall. Lyra stood near the corner, her heart sinking with every word. "We should end this alliance immediately," said another elder. "Exile the human representative before he brings more destruction." Lyra stepped forward. "That is impossible. Captain Holt would never—" "Silence!" snapped the Chancellor. "You've been blinded by your affection for that creature." His words cut deep. Lyra's throat tightened, but she stood tall. He is not a creature. He is an officer of honor, and I will not stand by while you destroy what we built." But her words fell on deaf ears. The council had already decided. Aaron Holt was to be placed under guard and sent back to Earth for questioning. When Lyra arrived at the guest quarters, Aaron was standing near the window, looking out at the burning skyline. His face was calm but heavy with sadness. "So it's true," he said softly. "They think I did it." Lyra took a shaky breath. "They found human tech residue near the blast site. I tried to defend you, but—" Aaron turned toward her. His eyes, usually warm and full of quiet light, were dim now. "Do you think I did it, Lyra?" Her lips parted, but no words came. In her heart, she knew he was innocent, but the evidence, the fear, the anger, it all made her uncertain for a single second. That second was enough. Aaron nodded slowly. "Then I understand. Maybe you should believe them." Lyra stepped forward quickly. "No, I don't know what to believe. Everything is happening so fast." He looked at her, not angry, just wounded. "If you believe I could hurt your people, then I've already lost what mattered most." Her eyes filled with tears. "Aaron, please!" But the guards entered before she could finish. They took him away in silence. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She sat near her window, watching the burning remains of the tower far away. Every part of her wanted to believe in him, but the doubt whispered cruel thoughts. What if the humans wanted to rule them? What if the Alliance was a trick all along? Her mind screamed no. Aaron wasn't like that. He cared too deeply. He never acted superior or deceitful. Then she remembered something strange. Aaron had mentioned that a group of trade drones entered orbit the night before, carrying supplies from a neutral planet. He had said they looked suspicious but was told not to interfere. Her heart jumped. What if that was connected? Without waiting for permission, Lyra changed into a dark cloak and left her chambers. If the council wouldn't find the truth, she would. Lyra sneaked into the diplomatic archive wing, where the data from the orbital sensors was stored. The guards outside had been reassigned due to the explosion chaos, so she easily slipped inside. The room was cold, glowing with blue crystal screens. She activated one and entered her code. "Search orbital traffic logs," she whispered. Lines of data scrolled past. Her eyes scanned quickly. Human ships, patrols, cargo vessels, and then she saw it. Unregistered trade drones. Origin unknown. Entry approved by Counselor Varen. Her heart raced. Counselor Varen was one of the strongest voices against the human alliance. Why would he approve unknown drones? Lyra downloaded the record onto a small crystal drive and turned to leave, when a cold voice stopped her. "Looking for something, Princess?" She spun around. Counselor Varen stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards. His eyes glowed faintly red under the crystal light. "I might ask the same," Lyra said, hiding the drive behind her back. "You shouldn't be here," he hissed. This alliance was doomed from the start. The humans would have enslaved us eventually. "You planted the evidence," Lyra whispered, realization dawning. "You used human tech to make them look guilty." Varen smiled darkly. "Sometimes peace requires sacrifice." Before he could call the guards, Lyra pressed a hidden button on her wrist. A tiny drone, one of Aaron's human gifts, activated and flew out, projecting a live recording. "This is being transmitted to the Central Council," she said calmly. "Your words will decide your fate." Varen lunged forward in fury, but the guards hesitated. They had heard enough. Within minutes, Lyra escaped as more soldiers rushed in to arrest him. The next morning, chaos turned to silence across the city. Varen's confession spread quickly. The explosion had been caused by a group of extremists who wanted to destroy the Alliance from within. Human ships had nothing to do with it. Lyra ran to the holding area where Aaron was kept. The guard stepped aside, embarrassed and silent. When she entered, he was sitting quietly, staring at the wall. "Aaron," she breathed, stepping closer. He didn't turn. "Did they find their answer?" She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "It wasn't you. It was Varen. He wanted to make humans look like enemies." Aaron finally turned. There was pain in his eyes, but also relief. "So the Alliance stands?" "It will," she said, voice trembling. "Because I won't let anyone break it again." He looked at her, studying her face. "Why did you come for me, Lyra?" She smiled weakly. "Because I realized something. I was afraid of you at first, afraid of your people. But last night, when I thought I might lose you, I realized what truly scared me. Losing the chance to know someone like you." Aaron stood, slowly reaching out to take her hand. Then maybe this alliance isn't just between two worlds anymore. She blushed softly, squeezing his hand. No, it's between two hearts. When they walked out together, the sun was rising over Velcora. The sky shimmered gold and silver, and the air was calm again. Humans and Valar workers stood side by side, rebuilding what was lost. Lyra and Aaron walked past them quietly. Every pair of eyes turned toward them, and for the first time there was no fear. There was hope. Lyra looked at Aaron. They will always remember this, you know. Aaron smiled faintly. Then let's make sure it's something worth remembering. As they stood together on the high balcony, the light of the twin suns touched them both. Two different beings, one of logic and one of emotion, united by something neither science nor politics could ever define. Not alliance. Not duty, but something far greater, understanding. The next few days passed like a slow sunrise after a long, cold night. The chaos was over. The truth about the explosion had spread through every star system. Both humans and Valar now knew that the sabotage was not born from hatred between their races, but from fear within one heart that couldn't accept peace. For the first time, the galaxy was quiet and hopeful. Princess Lyra Valar stood on the high terrace of the royal palace, watching the twin suns rise over the crystal skyline. The light painted the city in gold and silver, reflecting off towers that were still being repaired. Everywhere she looked, humans and Valar worked side by side, sharing tools, laughter, and effort. It was a sight she never thought she would see. Behind her, footsteps echoed. She didn't turn. She knew the sound well. Still not sleeping, Princess? Aaron's voice carried a familiar calmness that made her heart steady. She smiled softly. I couldn't, there's too much to think about. He walked up beside her, wearing the dark blue uniform of the Earth Defense Corps, now patched with the silver crest of the Valar Dominion. Two symbols joined as one. You've done it, he said quietly. You saved both our worlds, Lyra shook her head. We saved them, Aaron. I only saw the truth because you taught me how to look deeper than fear. He smiled faintly, eyes on the horizon. Fear's a heavy thing, but when you face it together, it starts to lose its power. For a long moment, they just stood there, the wind brushing past them, carrying the scent of new beginnings. Later that day, the grand hall of Velcora was filled with voices once again, but this time not of anger or division. The Great Union ceremony was about to begin. It wasn't only a political event, it was something far greater, a symbol of unity between two species that once saw each other as strangers. The hall was vast and glowing. Hanging lights floated in the air, and golden banners of both worlds shimmered on the walls. Hundreds of guests, humans, Valar, and members of other allied races filled the seats. At the center stood a single long platform made of crystal and steel. There, side by side, waited Lyra and Aaron. She wore a flowing silver gown that rippled like moonlight. Her hair was braided with strands of light crystals, a Valar tradition meaning new trust. Aaron wore his formal human uniform, its metals shining under the warm lights. Yet on his chest one pin stood out, a gift from Lyra, a small Valar star symbol, meaning courage through connection. As the ceremony began, the High Chancellor, now replaced by a kinder successor after Varen's arrest, raised his staff. Today, he said, his voice echoing across the hall, we witness not a treaty of power, but a promise of heart. The crowd fell silent. He looked toward Lyra and Aaron. Do you, Princess Lyra Valar, accept this union not as duty but as choice? Lyra's voice was clear. Yes, because today I see not a human or an alien before me. I see a soul that changed my world. Then he turned to Aaron. And do you, Captain Aaron Holt of Earth, accept this union in trust and friendship? Aaron smiled gently. With all my heart. Because the stars are brighter when we stand together. The Chancellor lifted both their joined hands. The crystal floor beneath them glowed in a swirl of blue and gold, the colors of both species' energy. A warm hum filled the air as the room erupted in applause. The alliance was official. The bond was sealed. But outside the palace, something far more powerful was happening. Across the communication networks of both Earth and Valar space, images of the ceremony spread like wildfire. Humans on Earth gathered around screens watching the princess of another world stand hand in hand with one of their own. Villar citizens watched with wide eyes, their doubts melting away as they saw the honesty in Lyra's face. For the first time in galactic history, two civilizations that once distrusted each other shared a single emotion: hope. News anchors, diplomats, and scholars all spoke of it as the beginning of the shared age. Children from both species sent messages to each other, learning each other's languages. And in military academies, soldiers were taught not how to fight the unknown, but how to understand it. That night, after all the celebration was done, Lyra and Aaron stood alone in the quiet garden behind the palace. The stars shimmered above, reflected in the silver waters of the lake. Lyra looked up. "Do you think our people will really keep this peace?" Aaron thought for a moment. Maybe not perfectly. Peace is never simple. There will be mistakes. There will be arguments. But now they've seen what's possible. That's a start, she smiled softly. A start. She took a deep breath. You know, when I first met you, I thought humans were too emotional, too unpredictable, too reckless. Aaron laughed quietly. That sounds about right. But now, she said, turning to him, I understand. You feel deeply because your lives are shorter. You value every moment. That's why you fight so hard, not just for survival, but for meaning. He looked at her with warmth. And you taught me what patience and balance mean. You helped me see the universe not just as a soldier, but as someone who belongs to it. Lyra reached out and took his hand. Then maybe that's why we were meant to meet. Not as symbols, but as people who remind each other what being alive truly means. For a while, they said nothing more. The stars above seemed to listen. The night was peaceful, calm, alive. Days turned into weeks, and the world began to change faster than anyone imagined. Joint human Velar colonies were founded near neutral planets. Mixed crews served together on exploration ships. Scientific teams shared their discoveries freely. Lyra became the voice of the new council that governed the Alliance. She was respected not just as a leader, but as someone who believed in hearts over hierarchy. Aaron was chosen as ambassador and trainer for the first mixed peacekeeping force. Wherever he went, people greeted him not with fear, but admiration. Yet no matter how busy life became, they always found time to meet. Sometimes it was on the palace balcony, watching the suns rise. Sometimes it was aboard a ship, traveling between worlds, and every time they reminded each other how this all began, with fear, with misunderstanding, and then with courage. One evening, as they prepared to attend another diplomatic summit, Aaron paused before entering the council room. "Do you ever wonder," he said softly, "how things would have gone if we never met?" Lyra smiled gently. "Then perhaps someone else would have tried. But I think the stars chose us for a reason." Aaron chuckled. "The stars?" She nodded. "Maybe they were tired of watching our worlds fight. Maybe they wanted to see love win for once." Aaron looked at her, admiration in his eyes. "Then let's make sure it keeps winning." And with that, they stepped into the light together once more. Months later, a statue was built in the center of Velcora's rebuilt plaza. It depicted two figures, one human, one Velar, standing side by side holding a single glowing sphere between their hands. The plaque below read, "When fear ruled the stars, two hearts dared to trust. In honor of Captain Aaron Holt and Princess Lyra Velar." Generations later, children would still visit that statue and hear the story of how peace began. They would learn that kindness could be stronger than fear, that empathy could heal what war once broke, and that sometimes the bravest act of all was simply to believe in someone different. As the years passed, the alliance grew stronger. New worlds joined, old wounds healed, and among the stars, the story of Lyra and Aaron became more than history. It became a legend of hope, a legend of love that crossed galaxies, a legend proving that no matter how vast the universe became, a single human heart could still change everything.